Hello. Hello, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to the Wix Wiz. This is our first ever live stream after two tests that I did last week, just to see how this all works. And today we're going to be talking about reference fields, which is a super useful part of data collections in Wix. And we're going to start off really simple. So we're going to start by setting up the fields themselves in the collections. And then we're going to move on to displaying data on your site using multi-reference fields and how to control the data using that. And then lastly, we're going to dive a little bit into dev mode and do some coding and talk about some of the how to manage references using Velo. So let's go ahead and get started. I see there are some people viewing. So yeah, if you're here, feel free to write in the chat, ask questions, make requests. Just let me know that you're watching and I'm not talking to myself. But either way, this video will be available after in its unedited version if people want to watch again. So I'm going to go over here to databases. And what we're going to do is we're going to make two collections, because what reference fields does is it basically links two different data collections. Technically, you could also use it to link items within a collection itself. So I'm going to go over here to my collections, and this now I'm doing it through dev mode. You can also add collections here from the content manager and go to collections. Yeah, and just create a new collection. Either way works. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create a collection. And I'm going to create two collections, as I said. One is going to be a collection of people. And I'm going to go ahead and click create. And this is just going to have some names of some people. So I'm going to say Mary, John, and Peter. Okay, so we're going to have three people here in our people collection. And one more thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to head over to permissions and privacy. And I'm going to change these all to anyone, just because I don't want to run into any privacy issues, because that's not really part of our tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and click save so we don't have any problems managing this data later on. And now I'm going to go ahead and make our second collection. So here we already have our people collection, and I'm going to go ahead and create another collection, and I'm going to call that one cars. Excellent. And I'm going to go ahead and click create. You can hear me, right? I just want to make sure that, is my microphone working? I hope so. I'm going to go ahead and click car, and let's add Toyota and Honda and Ford. Okay, so we have three cars in our collection as well. And now what we're going to do, after I just change the permissions here for the cars as well, so I'm going to go ahead and make this anyone, anyone, anyone. Hit save. And now what we're going to do is, thank you, JT, for letting me know that the sound is working. And now that we created our two collections, I am going to go back to our people collection. And what we're going to do basically is assign different cars to different people. So we're going to be making a connection between the people collection and the cars collection. So imagine you have a database full of different people and you want to know which people own which cars. Okay, that's the data that your website needs to manage. So thank you, David, as well. And then I'm going to go and add our multi-reference field or reference field. So to add one of these fields, you're going to add a field. And then over here, you see we have reference and multi-reference. And the key difference is that reference will reference only one item. So I'm going to change this to car. Okay, field name car. And here I need to select a collection. So I'm selecting the cars collection, and basically I'm saying this reference field is going to reference the cars collection. I go ahead and click save. And now you'll see that here I can choose one of the cars from my other collection to assign to Peter, let's say. So I can assign him a Ford, and I can assign John a Honda, and I can assign the same car to two people. So I can say, okay, John and Mary both have Hondas. Okay, I could do something like that, or I can assign different values to each person. And if I go ahead and I close this and go to our cars collection, you'll see here that there's no additional field that's been created. And I'm pointing this out to highlight it because when we create the multi-reference field, you'll see that it creates kind of a parallel universe column over here that references back to the referencing collection. So let's demonstrate that now. I'm going to go back to people, and I'm going to get rid of this single reference field. So I'm going to go ahead and click delete, and I'm going to create a new field, and I'm going to select multi-reference this time, and I'm going to call this one cars. And I'm going to select the cars collection again and click save. And I'm going to add Ford. And you'll see now that I have the option to add multiple cars. So now per person, I can have a Ford, a Honda, and a Toyota, or just Ford and Honda. And John can have just a Ford, and Mary can have just a Toyota. Okay, so this is an example of how a multi-reference field works. And if I close this and go to the cars collection, then you'll see here that it created this parallel field called people. And if we go to edit, then you'll see that this is the field name and this is the field key. One thing that you're going to want to notice for the future, if you're going to use it in code, it creates this field key as capitalized. So you're going to want to go ahead, and this is auto-generated, so we can't really change what the field key is. And this is something that might cause slip-ups later, so you'll want to notice that. And another thing that's interesting to point out, maybe another two things, if we go back to our people collection, and I'm sorry about all the jumping between collections, I hope it's not too confusing, but I can add multiple multi-reference fields. So I can select the collection again, multi-reference, and let's say this is previous cars. And I can select the cars collection again, and I can keep track of, let's say, okay, so Peter, let's say, used to own a Toyota, and now he owns a Ford and a Honda, and John used to own a Honda, and now he has a Ford, and these are both referencing the same collection. So there's no limit to kind of how many times you can reference another collection. And another interesting thing to see is if I say multi-reference again, and let's say I say siblings, okay, just as an example, I can go ahead and I can select this same collection that I'm in now, and I can reference other people inside of the collection. And you see that it created kind of the parallel universe column right here automatically. And if I select siblings, so I can add a reference, and let's say, okay, so Peter is John's sibling, so I can select John here. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a lag. Yeah, and you see here that they're kind of referencing each other as well within the same collection. Okay, so that's just a little bit of some examples of how to set up the references and what you can do using references. My personal preference is to always use the multi-reference field. I haven't identified like a specific advantage of using the single reference field, and even if you're only planning on having one reference inside of the field, you don't really lose anything by setting it up as a multi-reference field, and you always have the option to change how your data is structured later on. So that's my personal preference. If anybody else knows of an advantage of using a single reference field, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all these extra reference fields that we created just for the demonstration. And we're just going to keep this one single cars field over here. And that got deleted automatically. Yeah, so this would actually be a great point if anybody has any questions or comments. This would be a great time to ask, because we're going to be moving on to how to actually display this data and use it on your live site. So feel free to ask if you have any questions. And in terms of displaying the data, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a repeater. So go over here to list, and I'm going to add a very simple repeater to our site. Drag it down a little bit, and I'm going to add a text element to the repeater. And let's call this name. And I'm going to add another element, text. And I'm going to call this one cars. And now let's see kind of how we can play around with this data. So I'm going to go and add a, from over here, Content Manager. And then I'm going to add a content element. And I'm going to add a data set. So let's connect this data set to a collection. So I'm going to hit settings, and I'm going to connect this to the people collection. And read only 12. We only have 3 items, so it'll only display 3, but this is enough. So I'm just going to create it, connect it to this, and it's called the people data set. This is fine. And I'm going to connect our repeater okay, I'm just looking at JT's question. I have a price comparison set up now using multiple collections and code. Would this be better? I would need a little more detail to understand that question. Price comparison set up using multiple collections and code. Like, you mean that you made the relationships between the collections using code instead of using reference field? Is that the question? Feel free to add some more detail and explain it, and I'd be happy to address it soon. For now, I'm just going to continue with this demonstration, and I'm going to be connecting the repeater to the data set. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the repeater to the people data set. And this text of name, I'm going to connect to the title. Okay, so now we should see the names of the people over here. And now what I want to do is I want to connect these to the cars that those people have. So I'm going to go ahead and click, down here, and add custom content element and add another data set. And this data set is going to be connected to our cars collection. And okay, so JT, I'll be answering that question in a moment. Let me just finish setting this up. So this is connected to our cars collection, and I'm going to add a filter here so that the people includes the person from the people data set. So basically, I'm saying, okay, show me the cars for which the people field has this person. Okay, I know it's a little complicated to kind of wrap your head around, and hopefully once it's actually set up, it should be visually clear. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this cars to the cars data set. Okay, so we have a repeater that's connected to one data set, and then we have one specific element in the repeater which is connected to a different data set. And I'm going to connect this title. Okay, so now let's see, why isn't this not working? Let's go into preview mode. Maybe that'll, yeah, okay. So you see here that it's displaying Ford for all of them. So I just want to go back and check and see inside of our collection. So if I go to cars and then I go and open the collection here, okay, so you'll see that, okay, so Ford is only for Peter and John. Okay, so Ford should not be showing for Mary. Let me make sure that my filter is set up correctly. Maybe I didn't click save on the filter. No, I didn't click save on the filter. Okay, you want to make sure to click save on the filter. So I'm going to add the filter again. And this is the pleasure of being in a live stream. You get to see things happen for real. So I'm selecting people again. And this should include the people's data set. Okay, so whatever is selected in the people's data set, I'm going to go ahead and click add filter. Okay, so now our filter is definitely added over here. And I'm going to click preview. Okay, something snapped. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now it's working. So you see here that Peter and John, they have a Ford, okay, and Mary has a Toyota. Okay, because there was no Toyota, there was no Ford assigned to Mary. One caveat here is that you see that each one is only displaying a single item. And that's just because that's how this data set is set up. And when we connect an element, so this cars data set, it has a lot of items. And when I connect this text to this data set, it'll basically display the first item that fits our filter criteria. So for Peter and John, that's the Ford, and for Mary, that's the Toyota, even though either Peter or John, they had another car in there. So this is kind of a limitation in terms of when it comes to kind of setting up things using the no-code solutions. So sometimes we have to be creative and think about how we want to solve this. So if we wanted to show kind of multiple cars for each person, then this might be something that we would need to solve with code. And we'll talk about that soon. But in terms, like, we can't put a repeater in a repeater. So that's a kind of a limitation that we have in terms of the Wix no-code solution. I'm just going to take a look and address some of the questions now. So David asked, I have a single reference on last name. Last name is not unique, made it hard to figure out which reference was the correct one. Wish you could just use the ID or multiple columns for a reference. So that's an interesting problem. And as you're going to see when we do the actual code part, so when an item is assigned to the multi-reference field, is actually assigning it using the ID. I know that in the inside of the collection, so let me go into the collection and just kind of demonstrate what David's question is and kind of what my answer to that is. So if I go over here to the cars field, the people collection, so you'll see here that basically it's using the title field as the as the name when you select it here from the reference. So you see it says Ford, Honda, Toyota, because that's what we had under title. But David's saying that it could get confusing if I have multiple cars, for example, that are all Fords and their title is Ford, but they have other unique properties. But when I'm coming here to select them, then it is, they all say Ford, so it's hard. And he wishes you could just use the ID. And to be honest, when this, technically, even though Wix is displaying Ford, Honda here, really there's just an array with IDs inside this reference field. So that's really what's going on here. And I think that I have an idea for the solution of David's problem. So let's go for a second to our cars collection. And David, you can let me know if what we're going to do now is solving your problem or not. So I'm going to the cars collection. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and change the primary field. So you see now title is the primary field. Okay, and you can change the primary field. This is the default that it comes with, but it could be changed. So the first thing that I want to try and do, I'm going to expose this ID field. These are, by the way, 4 system fields that always exist whenever you create a new item. And these IDs are all unique. And let me see for a second. So I can't make this ID primary, but for example, in your case, David, if you had another field here, and I'm just going to call this car ID, and you created your own IDs that you use to identify each item here. So for example, this would be this number, this would be another number, and this would be another number. Then I can go ahead and make this the primary. Okay, you see this little flag here indicates that this is the primary of the collection. And okay, I think there was just some kind of error with submitting that data. Either way, if we go back now to our people collection, then what I think we should see is we should see those IDs instead of the, So you could see here now that we changed essentially the ID or whatever the identifier is for the multi-reference field to whatever that primary field is. So David, to answer your question, if you want to find a way to manage your items, you're going to have to assign them some kind of unique identifier and make that the primary field, and then that'll help you select the items that you want over here. I hope that clarifies a little bit. Yeah, and I'm just going to head over to JT. You have 3 columns. Each column has a drop down and a repeater. They all contain the same information. 5 different packages. I am using 3 collections and code to filter. Okay, David, yeah, thanks. I'm happy that worked. Also, it is set to automatically switch if a duplicate is selected. It works, but not exactly how I'd like. So yeah, that does sound like a situation. All contain the same 5 different packages, 3 collections, and a code to filter. So basically the drop down is connected to, so JT, let me do a short demonstration here of something, and let me know if this is kind of what you had in mind. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag this down a little bit, and I'm going to add a drop down, because that's actually a good question of how a drop down would play along here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a drop down. Input, 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 input. And then I'm going to select drop down. And I'm going to connect this drop down to the cars data set. So I'm going to choose the data set, cars data set, value will be title, and let's see, okay, this is what I wanted to do, connect the list items, cars data set, and title. Okay, give me 1 minute to set this up here, JT. Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to here. And I'm gonna go to this filter. Let's see, people data set. Yeah, so I'm trying to set up. So this is something that might need to be done with code. I'm trying to look here at the options in terms of the connect a data set. First, I want to connect the list items. And I'm going to say this should be cars data set, and let's connect this to the titles. Okay, so this now will be a drop down with all of our different cars. Okay, so if I go into preview mode, so all I did was connect this to our cars collection in terms of what it displays. Why is it not enabled? I'm going to remove I'm just going to remove the filter that we had on the cars data set, because I think that that might be creating some problems for us. Okay, so let's get rid of this filter. And now let's just preview. I just want to make sure that the dropdown is working correctly. Yeah, and I mean, you guys know how slow the Wix editor is to begin with, and then throw a live stream on that. Things tend to go a little slowly. Yeah, so here now we have our 3 cars. Obviously, best flavor doesn't fit here, but that's not so important. So I've connected these values to our car collection. And now what I want to try and do with no code is that when we select one of those, it'll filter the people data set accordingly. So I'm going to go over here to the people data set. And I'm going to go into settings. And I'm going to add a filter here. And let's say that well, I can set a filter that, let's say field cars includes, okay, so that won't work, but I could do for title. Let's say, no, actually, yeah, title is input element drop down, okay? And let's add that filter in. And I'm going to demonstrate what this does, and JT, you can let me know if that is what you had in mind. Okay, so I'm going to select, oh no, that's not going to work. Sorry. I just realized that does not make any sense. Okay. I'm adding another data set. I'm adding another data set here. These are things that I would usually, to be honest, I would usually solve with code, just because just the amount of flexibility that you have with code is immense. And if you know how to code, then it usually is actually easier to use code than to try and play around with all of these data sets. But I do want to try and help the people who don't know how to code, because, I mean, what you can do with these data sets in Wix as a no-code solution, it is really quite versatile, and you can really do a lot. So basically, let me explain what I'm doing now. I'm making 2 data sets that are connected to the car data set. One is going to be used to populate this filter, this dropdown, sorry, and the other one is going to be used to filter this this repeater. So I'm going to say that this second car data set, I'm going to add a filter. And I'm going to say that the title is user input element dropdown. Okay, so now when we select an item from the dropdown, it should also filter this second car's data set to be only one single item that matches what we picked in the dropdown. And then we can set the people data set. I'm going to go here into settings. And let's filter the people data set. So I'm going to get rid of this other filter, which didn't make any sense. And I'm going to add a filter. And I'm going to say that the car should include the car in data set 2. Okay, and then I'm going to go here into preview mode. And let's see if I change this, let's say, to Toyota. So I see here Mary. Okay. Sorry, I had disconnected the I disconnected this car value here. So this should be connected to car dataset 2, not car dataset 1. And this should be connected to title. Okay, so let's just go back to our collection for a second and see who's connected to what. So if I open this cars collection here, okay, so let's get rid of John here, and we'll change this to John. So Ford is Peter, Honda John, Toyota Mary. And you know what, let's connect also. So Toyota will be Mary and Peter. And now, is it very loud? Desired for glory, the chirping. I'm in my room, but the window's open, so, and it's morning here, so the birds are very happy. Okay, so we assigned. So that means that when we filter now, if I select Ford, I should only see Peter. If I select Honda, I should only see John. But if I select Toyota, then I should see Mary and Peter. So I'm going to go over here and preview. And I'm going to select Ford. So we see Peter. I'm going to select Honda. And we see John. And I'm going to select Toyota. And now we see Peter and Mary. So I don't know, JT, let me know if that kind of answered your question. So we have, we essentially have a repeater which is displaying people, and we're filtering that by the field that they're referencing in terms of car. So this demonstration is, I think, the closest to what I understood JT's question to be. Yeah, let me know if this kind of pushed you in the right direction. Yeah, and then if there are no other questions about like the no-code solutions, we can head over and start demonstrating how to use code for some of these purposes. Cool. Okay, so let's start talking about coding and how to insert reference fields, use reference fields, etc. So I'm going to go over here into our IDE, into our code panel. If you don't see this, then you're going to want to turn dev mode on. Okay, JT, yeah, I'm happy that kind of pushed in the right direction. And the first thing that I want to show is how to insert a reference field into a collection. So I'm going to first go to one of our collections, and I'm going to open the collection, and I'm going to get the ID for Ford, let's say. Okay, and this is obviously not how you would do it exactly. You would have to find some way to get this ID using code itself. You wouldn't go and start copying IDs by hand, but since I really want to pinpoint how to do the insert reference, I'm copying this ID at the moment by hand. And I'm going to say const Ford. Okay, see you, Desire for Glory. Thanks for joining. Okay, so here's the ID for the Ford. So let's call this Ford ID. And now I'm going to get an ID for one of the people. So I'm going to go over here, open collection. And let's get an ID for, well, first let's manage fields. ID from the system. And let's, for example, get John. And I'm also going to erase all the cars from John. So John currently has no cars associated with him. And I'm going to put his ID right over here. Const John ID. And again, this is not like, I'll try and show like a more realistic situation as soon as we get the basics down and I learn how to spell. But I just really want to show like an initial demonstration and then kind of make it more complicated. And I'm going to add a button here just so that we can use it to kind of initiate the insertion sequence. So I'm going to add a button. And let's call this insert button. And I'm going to change the text just to say insert. Excellent. And now let's take a look at the insert reference, Velo reference over here. So just first a brief overview. So all of this is within the Wix Data API that you see over here. And we have several methods that are related to references. So we have insert reference, is referenced, query referenced, remove reference, and replace references. And I'm going to be talking about most of these. And I'm starting here with insert reference. If I just give this a click, then you can see that this is how the insert reference goes. I'm going to copy over the code and talk about it more on the site itself. So let's create a wrapper function. How does this look? Can you see the code? Is it clear? Is it too small? Is it too big? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Also, if you have any questions as we're doing this. And I'm going to call this add Ford to John, okay? Because it's a very specific function that does a very specific thing. Sure, JT. Yeah, you can ask a question about any of my videos, any topic. Depending on how complex the topic is, I may or may not be able to address any questions now, but yeah, you could definitely ask, and if I can answer within a reasonable time, I will. And let me add this in here. Okay, so first of all, our imports are going to go at the top level. And let's explain what this is doing and how else we can also structure it. So we're calling Wix Data Insert Reference. And here we have the collection that we're inserting the reference into. So in our case, this will be the people collection. And then we have the field that we are inserting the reference to. So this will be our cars. I think it's the cars field. Let's see, one second. I have to remember if that's lowercase or uppercase. Cars, edit, lowercase. Okay, so this field. And then this is the ID of the item that we're inserting into. So that would be John's ID. And this would be Ford ID. Okay, and just to demonstrate how you can kind of know which one is what, so if you go wixdata dot insert reference, and then open parentheses, then you'll see it gives you instructions for what's what. So we have the collection ID, so that's people, property name, so that's the field that we're inserting to, so that's cars, the referring item, so the people collection is referring to a car, so that's the John ID, okay, of the ID of the item of John, and then we have referenced item, which is the item we're referencing, which is the car, which in this case would be our Ford ID. Okay, and that's just an overview, and obviously this is also written in the documentation itself, so you could read it there. And now I'm just going to add an event listener to our button. So insert button dot on click, and we're going to run this add Ford to John function. And yeah, let's give it a spin. So I'm going to go ahead and go into preview mode. And let's open the console. I'm going to hit insert, and we see reference inserted. So I'm going to go back to the editor and head over to the people collection. And you can see here that we inserted the Ford into John. I'm actually going to change the primary back to the original one, just so it's a little visually, it's a little more clear visually. So I'm going to make this the primary. Actually going to get rid of this card ID field because we only demonstrated that for David, just to be a little more clear. Okay, so that was an insertion. Okay, so that's how you insert a reference field. And in terms of remove reference, so we can go here to remove reference, and it's actually exactly the same thing, just with the remove. Okay, so if I go over here and I change this to remove reference and then preview, and I'm going to hit insert. Obviously we're not inserting, we're removing, but I just was too lazy to change the name of the button. And we go to our people collection. Then we see that it's gone. Okay, so we got rid of that specific reference from John. And another thing that we can do is referenced. So if we go over here and we take a look at is referenced, then we can check if something is referenced or not. So let's say if I want to check if the Ford is referenced in John, I can change it to is referenced. And then hit preview and insert. Sorry, one second. I have to change the code here a little bit more, my bad. So we're going to want result here, and then is reference is going to be result. So I'm going to copy this bottom part of the code to change it out as well. And I apologize for the siren sounds that some of you may be hearing at the moment. Let's go over there and change this out. Format. And I'm going to console.log is referenced. Okay, and now if we go to preview, so this should come out false at the moment because we erased the reference. So John is not referencing the Ford, so this should come out to false. So let's click that, and is referenced false. Okay, and now we can use that to build kind of a more complex system where, for example, we check if it's referenced, and then if I say if not is referenced, so that means like is referenced came back false, then we're going to insert. Okay, so I'm going to copy this over out of laziness, and I'm going to change this to insert reference. And then we can add our .then, console.log, reference inserted. Yeah, not spelling anything right. Inserted. And then we can also catch if there are any errors. Error. Okay, great. So now what we're doing is we have a two-step process where we check if the person is referenced or not. And if they're not referenced, then we insert the reference. Because if we don't do this, then we can create a problem when we try to insert a reference that's already there. So we want to create this condition first where we check if it's referenced. So now if I go ahead and I preview, and I click insert, then it's false, and then we inserted the reference. And then if we take a look at John in our collection itself, then we should see that he has that car, the Ford, associated with him. Okay, so that's like a slightly more complex structure. And now I just want to show in terms of breaking this into async await, because that's what I usually use when I'm coding in real life. I know that the Velo API reference is all built using .then. And for some of these, sometimes I will use .then because, for example, this insert reference, you can see that the promise that's returned is void. You can see that here as well. So if you go into insert reference, and you see what it returns promise void. So there's nothing really returned. So in terms of error handling and stuff, it makes almost just as much sense to use .then. Or you could also use a try catch. Let's show what some of that would look like. So let's make a new function. And I'll call that, new add Ford to John. And we're going to do this now using async await. So I'm going to say this is an async function. And first we're going to await this. So I'm going to say const result, or I can even just say directly is referenced, because we don't need to go through that whole two-stage thing where we say is referenced equals result. We could just say that this will equal to await this. And then if is referenced, then we're going to do all of this. And again, I can just say, for example, here, await this. Okay. Or what I can do is, for some people who don't like to even use ifs like this, they want to like be, you know, I'm not so against ifs. Some people are like, no, you shouldn't have kind of any opening of parentheses and putting stuff inside because it gets messy and whatever. So that you can also go like this, for example, if is referenced, then we're going to return. Okay, and that way you don't have like that if statement in there, but it gets complicated once you want to add an else. How do you do that? Yeah, so this is a much simple, like, compare this to this. What we aren't doing here is we aren't doing any of the error handling errors. So if you wanted to handle errors here, then you would have like a try catch, and then yeah, we could put this in here and then catch if there were any errors. But the only issue with this is that we're not really splitting up these two. So if there's an error with this or an error with this, it would catch over here. So technically, like each one of these would have to be in a try catch. Yeah. Yeah, let's, for example, show that I'm gonna erase John from, sorry, I'm gonna erase the Ford from John. And let's say if I go like this, car. Okay, so I'm creating an intentional error. Okay, because I want to see what this error handling looks like and demonstrate it. And I'm going to change this over here to like this. Okay, so let's preview that. And I'm going to hit insert, and we got an error. Provided property car is not a multi-reference field. Okay. That's pretty decent error handling from my perspective. And if I change this, for example, to cars, and then I change this one to car, then I'm going to go ahead and preview and insert. And same error on the second one. Okay, but there isn't really like an indication that this happened and this didn't happen. The only indication is that we actually reached this point, I guess. Whereas here, each case has its own individual kind of error handling. So depending on your situation and your use case and how you want to handle errors, sometimes it might make more sense to use .then, but I think that for 95% of the cases, this is the preferred way of doing things, just because otherwise it becomes a real mess. Because compare all these lines of code and these 5 lines of code. So let's just prove that it actually works if everything is written correctly. So I'm going to go over here into preview. And click insert. And, oh, so I didn't tell it to do anything. I didn't tell it to do anything if it actually inserts. And that's part of the problem with this await over here, is that like there's no, I could have put here, let's say, console.log inserted. And technically, if there's an error thrown over here, then it shouldn't get to that point. So let's just go to our people collection and check that John. Yeah, so John has the Ford now. I'm going to go ahead and erase it again. And let's throw an error and show that it won't console inserted. So I'm going to go ahead and show preview. Yeah, so this became like a half async await tutorial along with the reference fields. Yeah, so you see we didn't get any inserted over there. And I'm going to go back to the editor, get rid of our bug, preview it again. And click insert. And you see inserted. Okay, so that's just like a kind of demonstration of how this would work with async await. And now what I want to do is I want to build something a little more complex together. And we're also going to be using querying, okay, because we haven't really done querying of reference fields yet, so we'll demonstrate that as well. So if there are any questions about what we demonstrated so far in terms of insert reference, is referenced, remove reference, this would be a good time to ask questions. If not, let's get rid of all this code. And let's build a more interesting system up here that we can actually use. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to Dun, 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 dun. I'm going to delete all these data sets because we're not using data sets anymore. And I'm going to get rid of one of these text boxes. And I'm really making up this application that we're going to make now on the spot. So there is a level of spontaneity to what's going on here. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a system where we're going to have a dropdown. And this dropdown is going to have the names of the people. And we're going to have two repeaters. We're going to have two repeaters that will show, one will show the cars that that person already has, and the other repeater will show cars that that person does not have yet. Okay, so the editor is going a little crazy because I erased those data sets. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to refresh the editor. Just going to go ahead and refresh. So actually, JT, if you want to go ahead and ask your question now about the other tutorial, this would be a good time. If anybody has any other questions as the editor reloads, if you want to go take a drink of water, open a bag of popcorn, this would be the time for that. I imagine it'll take a little longer than usual to load, because I'm live streaming right now. Or if anybody wants to tell a joke, that could also work. Almost there. What would Wix do on my live? Anthony. Okay, so Wix is back. JT's question. I watched the custom sign-up video yesterday and started building one for my editor X site. The problems I'm running into is that I want my sign-up to be in a light box. Okay, so what issue does that, why does that cause an issue? If you could just further elaborate on that, and I might be able to address it later on. I'm just going to go back to the reference page, which is where we were building what we were building. Okay, so we're back here, and let me just recap what we're trying to build over here. So we're going to have one drop down, which is going to be populated with cars. So I'm going to change this settings, and this is going to be, sorry, this is going to be people. So please select a person. Okay, and we're going to be populating this with data. So that's all we need for now. And we have we're going to have two repeaters. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this repeater and paste another one right over here. Did that copy over? Ah, there it is. Okay. So we have two repeaters here. Yeah, I definitely do not recommend Wix plus live streaming. It's not a great combination. But I do like the ability that we can interact and you know, talk and ask each other questions. So that is a plus. The speed is kind of not. Yeah. Maybe next time I'll set up some more of this stuff in advance. That way we don't have to deal with, because the coding stuff I find actually doesn't slow down the editor at all. It's mostly dragging elements around, which really can get annoying sometimes. JT, so regarding the social login for the custom sign up, I think that you have to do that by hand, like to actually use, yeah, like Anthony said, you have to actually code the using their APIs and their SSO for each individual one, which would be different. I think that's the way you got to go. Can I move this a little bit? Yes. Okay. I'm just going to use it as it is because move this up. Oh God. Let me drag this button. Can somebody recommend a new laptop? I think I need a new computer. Okay, and I'm putting a button here in this repeater. And basically what we're going to do is that, so we're going to select a person. And on the left side, we're going to display the cars that they own. And on the right side, we're going to display the cars that they don't yet own. And when we click on the button over here inside the repeater, we're going to add that car to the cars that they own. Okay, so it's a pretty simple application, but I think that it's a good demonstration of references, and it can really have practical use cases as well. So let's first go ahead, and the first step will be to populate our dropdown with the people. Okay, so I'm going to select this. I'm going to call this people dropdown. And I definitely appreciate you if you've stayed through all of those annoying draggings of repeaters. You are very persistent. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to query our people collection. So I'm going to say const, let's say get people M1 Pro 16. Okay, I'm going to check out these comments later and see your recommendations for laptops. And And this is going to be an asynchronous function. And we're going to say const people query result equals await Wix data dot query people. Okay, so this gives us a list of all the people, and dot find. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to also use include. And this is something that is relevant to reference fields. And I'm going to say cars. So what this is going to do now is when this queries the people, it's going to return the people items with all of the cars that are linked to that specific person. Okay, if I wouldn't have used include here, you know what, let me demonstrate first what it looks like without this include, and then with the include, because this is actually key to understanding reference fields and how to use them. And then I'm going to say const people is equal to people query result dot items, and then console dot log people. Okay, and I'm just going to run this get people function as soon as we load the page. And let's go into preview mode. Excellent. So this is what returned from our query. And you can see here that we have the title, but we don't have the referenced fields. We don't have the cars or any mention of the cars here at all. Okay, because we did not use the include keyword. But I'm just going to head back to the editor. If I include cars, and let's preview what that looks like. Then you can see here that I got the cars field back as an array, and we have the cars that are associated with that specific person in the reference field. So for Peter, it was these two cars, but if we take a look here at John, then there's only one car here, which is the Ford, which we inserted before, etc. So if you want to get back the entire item or items that are referenced by in the reference field, then you have to use that include when you're running the query. So I'm going to go back to editor. And now what we want to do is we want to use these people to populate this drop down. So I'm going to say people drop down dot options is equal to a map of these people. So I'm going to go people dot map, and for each person we're going to have an object person, and it'll be value. So we need to attribute here a label, and that will be the person dot title. And we also need a value, and here I'm going to use the ID. So this will be person dot ID. Okay, and the values need to be unique. And this will basically make the drop-down options of this drop-down all of these people. Another thing that I want to do is I want to store this people variable in a global variable up here. So I'm going to say let people, and as soon as I get the query back, I'm going to assign the value to this so that I can access it from other places in my code as well. Okay, and now let's say I'm going to populate. So now when we select from the dropdown, we said we were going to display the cars that they have and the cars that they don't have. So that means that we're going to need to get a list of all the cars as well. So I'm going to add another function here. And I'm going to say get cars. And this will also be an asynchronous function. And it's going to be very similar to this. I'm just going to copy this over. Let me deal with my code whining. And get rid of this. And this is going to be cars query result. And we're going to be querying the cars collection. Here we don't need this include because I just want to get a list of all the cars. And this will be equal to cars. And this will be the cars query result. Yeah, please believe me that I code a little faster when I'm not demonstrating on a live stream with a very, very slow connection. Yeah, I mean, in general, the whole process is a little more streamlined. There are a lot of things that are happening now that don't usually happen. Okay, so we get our cars, and we'll call that kind of as soon as we load the page as well. Now what we want to do is that as soon as we select an option from the dropdown, it will populate these repeaters and display them. So let's add an event listener for the dropdown. Dot on change. And here I'm just going to call a function. So I'm going to say on change populate repeaters. And now we need to actually, oh, I didn't put this in quotation marks. Now we need to actually create that populate repeaters function. Oh no, why did I close the ID? Okay, I want to drag this up a little bit so you guys can see better. Okay, populate repeaters. And this will be, will this be asynchronous? No, I don't think it needs to be async. Maybe it will be, we'll see. Okay, so populate repeaters, what are we gonna do? So first, on this left side, we said we're gonna put all of the cars that that person has. So first let's filter to get that certain person. So person will be equal to people dot filter, and we're going to choose the person. I'm just going to write P here so we don't have confusion between person and, or you know what, I'll change this to be selected person. That's a little more clear. And this will be person. And we want the person dot ID. So here, because this is going to be being used as an event listener, we can tap into the event property here in the parameters. So we have event over here, and then I can say that the first people that filtered in ID equals to event.target.value. Okay, so essentially this is going to be the ID that of the selected person. And then we're going to use that to filter this this array over here so that we only have this one selected person. And I'm just going to say 0 here at the end so that we actually, so this is an object and not an array. Okay, because this filter will return an array with hopefully only one person. And then I'm going to want to select that single person from the array into an object. So this will be that selected person. And then what we're going to do with this selected person is we're going to say const owned cars. Okay, so the cars they already own will be equal to selected person dot cars, and then we will use that to populate the repeater. So we'll say, I need to name this repeater, I think. Let's see, repeater 1. This will be owned cars repeater, and this will be owned car name. Okay, and then so this repeat, we're going to assign that data to this repeater. So here we have owned cars repeater dot data will be equal to owned cars. And we don't need to do any adjusting for this data because it's data that came back from a Wix collection. It already has an ID. It's already ready for using in a repeater. What we do need to do is we need to tell the repeater what to do once it gets data. So in order to do that, we use the on items ready. So on item ready, and here we can pass in 3 parameters. So item data, and you can also pass in index here. I usually don't end up using index, but those are just the 3 options. So I'm going to show you all of them that you can pass through. And basically this lets us assign each individual item, how to behave based on the item data that's passed through. So I'm going to say here item owned car name dot text will be equal to item data dot title. Okay, so we should see here a list of all the owned cars. And this is, I feel, a good point to stop and test. I like just kind of stop and test. I mean, I'm quite confident it's going to work, but it would be good to identify bugs at this point so that we don't, make them deeper down into our code later on when we're coding. So let's take a break and see that this is all working. So I'm going to go here into preview. And I'm going to select Peter, and we see Ford and Toyota, okay, because those are the 2 cars that Peter owns. John, just a Ford. Mary has a Toyota. Okay, so that's working as expected. Oh, and I see that there's another repeater here on the side from when I was copying all those repeaters. Okay, let's go back to the editor. And now we're going to deal with this repeater on the right, which is the repeater that shows the cars that are not yet owned. So this is the cars to buy repeater. Okay, let's say. And inside here we have our text. So let's see if, oh no, I don't want text ideas. So in a real live situation, just to clarify a bit, if there are any potential clients watching me now, obviously I wouldn't just leave this text a paragraph here. I would write something a little more intelligible. I'm just trying to really cut down on how much I'm actually using the editor, because as you see, it is very slow. So text 4, I'm going to change this to buy car name, and I'm going to change the button I'm going to select this button. And I'm going to edit the text. If Wix will let me. Okay, edit, change. Let's say buy now. I'm just trying to make it a little funner, because so that it's like a little more realistic and not just say insert. And let's say this is the buy now button. Okay, so now let's deal with populating the second repeater. So for the second repeater, what we want to do is we want to filter this cars, which is all the list of all the cars, and not include cars that are already owned by that specific person. Okay, so essentially what we want to do, let's see, so const to buy cars equals to cars.filter, and we're filtering each car, and we're going to say that let's see, how am I going to do this? Okay, so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to map the owned cars. So I'm going to say const owned cars ID will be equal to owned cars dot map, or actually, do I even need to map it? Yeah, I'm gonna map it. And then for each car, we're gonna have car.id. Okay, so I'm creating an array with just the IDs of the cars that are owned. And then I'm gonna say that not, yeah, own cars IDs dot includes includes or include? I think it's includes. No, maybe include. We'll find out in a moment if it's include or includes. And this is going to be car.id. Okay, so this basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm saying that filter these to buy cars, and include all the cars where the array of owned car IDs does not include that car ID. So I think that should work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the to buy car repeater dot data should be equal to to buy cars. And now we need to set up the to buy car repeater as well. And here we have another level of complexity because we're also setting up a button. So this will be the to buy car name. Wait, this needs to be to buy car repeater, not name. To buy car repeater. And this is to buy car name. Okay, so that works. And now we need to set up the button. And this is really where we get to the whole insertion thing. So we're going to say buy now button dot on click. And then we're going to handle our insertions. Okay, so we're going to need to know who the selected person is. So I'm going to also lift that variable up here. So let selected person, and I'm going to assign it over here. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to say await Wix. Okay, so we need to make this async. Wix data dot insert reference, and then here we're going to have people, and we're going to have cars, and we're going to have the item that we're inserting to, which is this selected person's ID. So this selected person.id. And we're going to have the car that we're inserting, which is item data.id. And before I insert the reference, what I actually want to do is I also want to remove the reference. Oh, actually, no, I think we're good. After we insert, so basically what I'm trying to figure out now is that after we insert this reference, we're going to want to kind of refresh everything because essentially we want to display that change. So that means we're going to have to get, let me try and think of how I want to do that. I could call populated repeater again. Selected person. No, we're going to have to get our queries again. So let's say get people, get cars we don't have to call again because the cars won't change no matter what, but we'll have to say populate repeaters here. And there could be more error handling and kind of error prevention that we can put in over here. But for now, I just want to see if this is like basically working. So let's go ahead and click preview. And I'm going to select a person, so Peter. Okay, this didn't work. Okay, this didn't populate over here, so let's try and figure out why that's happening. So we get to do debugging, which is my favorite part of this whole thing. And excellent. So let's see, let's console this. Console.log. Let's say owned cars IDs, and to buy cars. Yeah. Let's see what that returns. Select a person. Oh. So we didn't even get to that point in the code, which is very interesting. So that means that there's probably something going on over here that's not so great. And let's try changing this to includes, because maybe it is includes and not include. Let's change this to Peter. Ah, yay, it was includes. Okay, so we see that Peter has a Ford and a Toyota, but he doesn't have a Honda. And I click buy now, and cannot read the properties of identified, reading target. Cannot read the properties. Ah, okay. So here, our populated repeaters, our populate repeaters function, remember it gets the event. But here, for the on-click event, the event is from the button, and it's not from the from this. So that's the issue that we're having here. Okay, so let's. Okay. let's get rid of this event. And I'm going to say here, do I even need to, yeah. And this will be people dropdown.value. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is instead of getting it through the event, I'm always going to get it just directly from the dropdown. If I was refactoring this code, maybe I would do some other stuff. Maybe break down this function. It's rather large and split it up and do some different things here. But for now, since what we're really demonstrating here is this simple insert process, I'm going to skip that. So Peter has all the cars. John only has a Ford. So let's say he says buy now for the Honda. Okay, let's see what happened here. Okay, so this I think is working now. And let's just see if the Honda actually moved. So let's go back here to Peter. John, sorry. No, John, Peter, Mary. Okay, there's something going on here. There's something going haywire here because this is not making so much sense. So let's go back to the editor. Let's take a look at our actual collection and see what's going on here. Okay, so let's get rid of this and this, and let's say this. Okay, I just realized what our problem probably is, and yes. So you see here for the button, I was using the W here, and this actually needs to be item. Because otherwise, what it was basically doing is when I clicked one of the buy now buttons, it actually ran that same code for every single button that was in this repeater on the right side. So it was kind of adding all the cars over there. What it didn't do is it didn't kind of refresh. Everything didn't kind of refresh, which I kind of wanted it to after we clicked. Yeah, so let me create a new function. And I'm going to call this refresh repeaters. Refresh repeaters. No, but I think that this should have worked. Let's see what's happening. It gets the people again, populates repeaters. Let me think how I want to handle this. Let's return people. No, that's not what I want. Let's see if I could just add an await here. Let's try this. I'm starting to feel like it's getting a bit sloppy, but okay, so Peter has a Honda and he doesn't have a Ford or Toyota. I click buy now. Ah, there we go. That worked. Okay, so basically Peter has now bought the Ford, and if we go to Mary, then Mary can buy the Honda. And if we go to John, John can also buy a Honda. And you can keep on playing around with it until everybody has bought all the cars. Yeah, and we could also, you know, if we wanted to play around with a little bit, yeah, whoever's still watching, please let me know if you're already bored and you want me to finish up, if you have any questions, if you want to see me do more things. Yeah, I mean, I could really, like, once I have an idea like this, I can just play around with it all day and turn it into like a full application. For example, like if we put a button over here And we can turn this into sell now, let's say. And then I'll name this the sell now button. And so here we'll have another, I'm actually going to copy this over from here. I think it'll save some time. So sell now button, when that's clicked, we're going to remove the reference and then get people and get repeaters. So let's see if that works. Thank you very much, JT. I appreciate the support. Yeah, so let's say Peter, if I click sell now, it sells the Honda, buy the Toyota, go to Mary, sell the Honda, buy the Ford. Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much exhausts what we can do with this demonstration. David, thank you. I've learned a lot. Hope to continue. Okay, thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised that people actually came to watch today. I was kind of worried that I would end up talking to myself. But it has been very encouraging to see everybody here, the 5 or 6 people who were here. Python addiction, not bored either. Just trying to look at ways of turning incoming requests and copying things to another collection. So very informative. Okay, great. I'm happy to hear. Yeah, so let's open it up to questions. Let's open it up to how do I do this? How do I do that? Maybe if there's like some specific thing you'd want, like an expansion on this application that I just built that you'd want to see. I'll stay on for a few minutes and be open to questions. JT, if you want to clarify that question from before, if you didn't get an answer about the other video that you were asking about, this would be a good time. Yeah, there's like, while I'm waiting for the questions, like obviously there are some things you can do to pretty this up. Like for example, we could collapse these two so that they're not showing before, and then only when we actually kind of populate the repeaters, only after that we show them. So right over here we can show our 2 repeaters, or expand them at least. So this would be own cars repeater dot expand, and this would be to buy cars to buy repeater dot expand, and just go into preview, and then we select Peter, and then it's a little prettier than having those like empty repeaters showing. Yeah. So that's all for today, I think. I don't see any more questions popping up. You can continue to comment on this video after it's over. I'll probably be publishing it soon. And yeah, I mean, since we got a nice crowd for this live, I hope to do another live sometime soon, probably not next week, but maybe again in 2 weeks or something like that. So, let me know what you'd like to see in a live video. Maybe we can explore a specific problem that somebody has on their site that they want to solve. I think that could be something pretty cool. So definitely hit me up via the comments or via my website if you would like to explore that. Yes, that yeah, JT, you read my mind with the comment. I think there's a slight delay between when I talk and when you guys hear. So that explains why it might be a little asynchronous in terms of the comments and what I'm actually saying. I think I might have set that somewhere in the YouTube settings by accident or on purpose and not understanding what it would be like. So I'm reading now Python Addictions question. Can you import or query info from one catalog and move or copy to another, i.e. the question system is a form request to the vendor, and that form to push an active vendor collection. So are you asking about submitting a form or about moving somebody from one? Can you import or create from one catalog, copy to another? Like, let's say there is there's a customer item, and that item you could then link using a reference field to a vendor's collection, or you can use regular Wix query to get that entire item, and then, I mean, let me show you here. Like, basically, to any question like what Python just asked, the answer is almost definitely yes. The question is just how. So if you take a look at this Wix data in the Velo reference, so you'll see things here like query, get, insert. Okay, so this is for inserting a regular item into a collection. So basically, you can get an item from one collection, insert it into another, as long as the fields are lined up. You can play around with the data pretty much however you want. It's just a matter of how to structure your data to make sure that your application is scalable. And that's one of the things that I really like about the reference fields, because I think it makes it extra scalable. Yeah, so to save from a form, I mean, you would use something like this, save. And then here for the to save, you would just use the different fields. And here you would get the values from like the inputs, let's say, and then you'd save it to a collection, and then it would add that item to the collection. I have some videos, I'm pretty sure, demonstrating these kind of things. I did a whole series on the basic operations of Wix data, and like, you know, get, insert, save, update. I'm pretty sure I did it as well. So Python, if you want to check those out, I think it'll answer your question. Okay, yeah, JT, feel free to send me a message, and maybe if you're open to it, we can make that the topic of the next live, as long as it's not something that you need solved by tomorrow. Yeah, so I'm going to be wrapping this up now. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for all of your comments, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks.